having fun. The people in the audience are laughing. And I feel like this, generally speaking, to live events, you know, musicians and actors and that type of thing, like they're taking people out of their space for just a period of time. And hopefully the people who are, you know, absorbing it are getting goosebumps and laughing and crying and all of that.
It's a gift. It's a gift to kind of like take, I don't know. And I feel that way in photography too, but I feel it a lot when I'm observing the work of other people as well, like with this and with that podcast and with like just other things in general that you're like consuming as a consumer. Like it's so nice to have a slice of somebody's life to connect with. And I felt that way when I listened to Brandy and Tanya talk about the album that they worked on together on Broken Record, which is kind of like how I got into that podcast. And and that kind of ties back to the Americana Fest world and all of that stuff. And just like the pieces of life that you can kind of like dive into that you wouldn't necessarily have access to otherwise. I think that is one of the gifts of like this time in life and this time in the world, and like having access in a really beautiful way, like not in a way that feels like exploiting somebody's truth or somebody's life. Like you do get to have like these little bits of connection where like you wouldn't necessarily have that. And it feels like a gift. It feels like a gift to be allowed into that space. And it feels like a gift to be able to like be a listener to that as well. And just, I don't know. I mean, I still stand by the fact that like we're all of us, like artists, non-artists, like wherever you land in the spectrum of humanity, like we're all trying to do work that matters and work that like makes people feel something. Yeah. And if at the end of the day we can hang our hat on that, then like, I think it's been a damn good day. Agreed.
I would say that I wish all people were trying to make all people feel good. Because imagine the place that we would be. You know, we always, like you and I and people like us, we have this idea like, God, even if I just make a few people feel good for an hour, like, can that spread? Does that spread to somebody like who listened and like, oh, I was really inspired. Like I was with your friends and like, oh, I want to share that with other people. And does that ripple affect, you know, we a lot of us can sit here and be like, well, but I'm just this one person that nobody knows and I don't make that big of a difference, but can we though? Like I would hope we could. And I would hope that we could spread that.
Big changes made one person at a time. I mean,
I know that's the truth. It's just so hard to feel.
It is hard. It's hard when you look at it with a macro lens. If you look at it with a micro lens, which is sometimes like you were asking about like what I have to do with my work sometimes, like if I get stuck in a rut, and I feel like this is true kind of across all industries, across all kinds of people. Like if you put the micro lens, like you just, you know, you zoom in, you know, instead of like zooming out and feeling super overwhelmed with the amount of things that you aren't getting done and the amount of work that you aren't getting or the amount of feedback that you aren't getting or the amount of accolades that you haven't received. Like if you are looking at that, like it's really easy to get in the spin cycle. But when you zoom in, like sometimes for me, that's like if I spend a day like being a nanny, that isn't really moving my career forward. It isn't even like if I'm looking at it with my filters for this year, it's not even really moving me towards like being a foster parent. It's giving me great experience and I love it. I absolutely adore children and I love that work. But like even in that context, if I zoom in on like the closest lens, I'm like, it did make a difference in like that kid's day. It made a difference in that kid's parents' day. It made a difference in like in the context of the childcare that I'm doing most of the time now. Like it's making a difference in the people who are in the audience of that kid's mom listening to her music.
That's
like,
a good point. Yeah.
And so I kind of rein myself back into being like, okay, like what am I proud of today? Right. What did I do today that like my tomorrow self is going to be grateful for? And if I can't answer that, then I probably shouldn't go to bed yet. Like I probably have some work to do. Like I want to like, you know, and I don't know. I think we're all, you know, I would like to think that all of us, even folks who we would have a hard time maybe even being in the same room with, like I would like to think that on a molecular level, we're all trying to do some level of good. And that looks different to everybody and it feels different. But like, I don't know. I think my community is it for me. Like it is at the core of everything I believe. And it's been really interesting. I think the biggest thing that has been fun for me to like watch and sort of like try to embrace as a metamorphosis is like this move from California and then to Nashville and to see how like pieces of both worlds have collided, like where I felt so totally isolated and alone in Nashville for so much of like the first year that I lived there. I couldn't get back here fast enough. All I wanted to do was come home. I just wanted to come home, and like I worked in places that were familiar to me. I worked with people who were familiar to me. It felt so good, but like kind of growing into that space and like building a community there.
Yeah.
And then seeing, even if we, again, with the micro lens, if we're zooming in on just this podcast and like just how like those worlds have collided in such a positive way. Like I got to work with somebody who listened to this podcast, who was moved by like what we talked about and how we talked about work. That like collides in a completely different way with the people that I've been working with in Nashville. And then now, these friends of mine who are doing this podcast, so you have excited. An ear on a heartbeat of East Nashville. Like it's just beautiful. Like it's a small world. It's a small world after all.
It's like, a small world.
It really is.
Lynn Coons, that was the name of
Lynn Coons. Yeah.
Lynn Coons. All right. I'm going to put her social media stuff up too. Like we're going to shout out
We're
to
going to have lots of people to plug us.
I know I'm making all my notes, my good shit from this podcast.
Yeah. It's the good shit list.
I'm so happy that you came back. And
thanks for having me back.
I'm mostly happy that you texted me and you're like, hey, let's do another episode.
Yeah.
I was not going to do anything in January. This was so funny. Now I will have by the end of next week, I will have about 15 hours of podcast content because I don't want to say no. Because when people are in it, I'm like, I love this. I'm doing so much of it.
Part of this life is like sometimes you have to just drink from the fire hose.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing, and
it's
I'm loving
feast or famine,
every
it's drought or tsunamis. Like it's like it really is that way sometimes, and good for you. Like I'm so excited to see how that goes.
I know, me too.
I can't wait to listen.
All right, well, we'll wrap this up. Happy, it's a Wednesday. Oh my God, cheers. Do you have still any vodka? Oh, you have nothing left in your glass.
I drank it all.
Oh, that's right.
Clink,
She's
clink.
drinking kombucha with Spirit Works vodka.
A little bit of vodka. Shout out to the Spirit.
I'm suddenly on a tequila kick, and so I'm drinking this Grande Ovejo.
I mean, are either one of us never not on a tequila kick?
It's new for me. I've been like, until I had the two guys from the Mezcal brand, Sal and Danny. And this is one of Sal's brands.
Right on.
And now I'm like, all right, I'm going to try. Actually, it helps when you drink the good stuff. I think up until then I drank all the, the garbage
I don't have much to say about well tequila.
Is that what that is? The garbage as well, tequila?
Yeah. Just whatever's in the bottom of the barrel.
All right. Well, okay. So cheers to Nashville.
Here's to a top shelf New Year.
Top shelf New Year. Sweet. I love it. Happy Wednesday. We will talk soon.
Adios.